By the Royal Grenada Police Force. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson, and we have with us today Superintendent Vannie Curwen in charge of Community Relations and Superintendent Randy Connaught in charge of Traffic. And we're talking this morning, well, basically looking at an overview of operations, new businesses that will be opening, and then, of course, certain reminders for things that the public need to be reminded of. Those are some of the issues that we'll be looking at this morning. And just please remember that we are still under curfew, so we have to, it's a business shopping day today, but we have to move with purpose as it has always been asked of us. So without further ado, I will turn over to Superintendent Vannie Curwen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson, and good morning to you members of the media. Good morning to the viewing and listening public. This morning is another press brief from the RGPF, as Ms. Johnson has indicated. Our presentation this morning will be threefold, or in three parts. We'll give an overview of our police operations for the last week. We will announce the opening of new businesses, and we'll provide some reminders to the public. After which we'll take some of your questions so that we can clear up any doubts, ambiguities, or concerns that you may have. So let me start by looking at the overview of our police operations over the last week. Starting the beginning of this week, the RGPF have collapsed all our parish boundaries to allow persons the opportunity to move within parish, as has not been the case before. Notwithstanding the fact that those parish boundaries have been collapsed, we maintain a police presence as our parish boundaries so that we can control movements of people and monitor what is happening between the parishes. The 24-hour curfew remains in force, and the RGPF continue to enforce this curfew. The curfew is only lifted on the business days, Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. So curfew remains in force, and RGPF continue to enforce the curfew. Our vehicle checkpoints are in place 24 hours a day, and as you move around the island, you would see our policing checkpoints, you will see our vehicle checkpoints in different parts of the country, and though the parish boundaries have been collapsed, we continue to do what we need to do. Our patrols have continued through the week and are continuing. We continue to respond to calls from the public for police services, whatever that would be. Law enforcement continue as normal, notwithstanding the fact that our focus now is on the Emergency Powers Act. The general duties and responsibilities of the police force continues. We maintain a presence around businesses on business days, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We continue to support the Ministry of Health with contact tracing and other services requested, and we continue to work with all other stakeholders as we continue to manage this crisis going forward. Fortunately, we have seen a decrease in arrests for violation of the regulations and a greater cooperation from the public. And for that, we do wish to say thanks and hats off to the public for working with us and adhering to those protocols that have been put in place to ensure and guarantee our safety. New businesses opening. Now, due to the continued adherence of the protocols by the public and the cooperation that you have been showing, this week we have seen more business days, we have seen longer business hours, and we have seen more businesses opening. This morning, we will be announcing the further opening up of other types of businesses by the authority of the Commissioner of Police, acting on the direction of the Cabinet of Grenada as follows. And I want to reiterate this point here. When we come to these press briefings and we speak of businesses opening, I do not know if we give the impression that the police are opening up those businesses. The Act gives the police commissioner the authority to do certain things, but acting on the direction of the Cabinet of Grenada and not the Commissioner of Police or the police force, acting on our independent and deliberate judgment and decision. I just thought I wanted to make that clear. So everything we say here has been done. A committee have put the package together. The commissioner has authority under the Emergency Powers Act, but those authorities are used in consultation and on the direction of the Cabinet of Grenada. So the first business that we want to mention that will be opening this morning is barrels. This has been a concern over the last couple of weeks. We have had a clamoring for personal effects and barrels at the port. So I'm happy to report this morning that the Grenada Customs Authority and the Grenada Ports Authority have worked out a structure or a mechanism to facilitate the clearing of barrels and personal items from the St. George's Port. However, Because this is not business as normal, there has to be a procedure that has to be built in to ensure that we maintain all of the protocols that have been established. So this is how the barrel is going to be rolled out. Different companies that brings in barrel into the country will be given specific days on the business days, which are already established as Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So these businesses will be given specific days to enter the pier and clear those barrels. Having done that, these businesses will contact the consignee or the customer so as to come to the port to process or collect those barrels. I want to make this point here clear. Customers should only appear at the St. George's port having been contacted by the agents of these companies and not just make their way to the port to clear barrels on their own independent decision or independent judgment. So persons should not show up at port unless and until they are contacted by the agency responsible for the barrel to say that the barrel is clear, that it is available for collection. It's only then you make your way to port to collect. This process of barrel collection will continue in force until all barrels at the port are cleared. And I want to say this again. This process of the clearing of barrels will continue until all barrels are cleared. These will be done on the business days of Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And customers or consignee should only come to port having been called by an agent to say that your barrel is ready for processing or for collecting. Number 2, tire shops, auto mechanic service maintenance, and auto parts businesses will now be opening. The authorities understand the need for the servicing and maintenance of vehicles, tires, and the need for auto parts. However, these businesses must operate by appointments only in order to maintain control and prevent clustering. Persons therefore should call into these businesses to make an appointment, and these businesses should create a schedule in order to minimize congestion. It is not the case where you just show up at a part shop or at a tire shop. You're asked to make an appointment with a particular business who is obligated to create a schedule and let you know what time of the day will be most prudent so you can show up. We urge these businesses to work within the guidelines to avoid the retraction of these facilities. We appeal to the public to exercise control. We have seen the operation of some auto parts businesses on the island whose operations have created hindrances to the free flow of traffic in normal times. This needs to be avoided and will not be tolerated by law enforcement and will be policed very vigorously. Crowd density is something that we will be looking for to ensure that these businesses do operate by scheduling to avoid clustering. 3, Courier Services. As of today, Courier Services will be coming on stream, and that includes DHL, FedEx, and Quick Pack services. These services have been clamoring for by the public over the last couple of weeks. The authorities have now seen a fit being a lot more comfortable with where we are to now make these services available to the public. Also coming on stream is the reactivation of postal services on the designated days of shopping, which is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Manufacturing. In a previous presentation, it was announced that manufacturing of essential goods and services were cleared to operate. This announcement seems to have brought confusion in the minds of many people. And so all sort of manufacturing industry thought that they had the right to open. But the manufacturing companies that were focused on in this period were the manufacturers of PPEs, personal protective equipment, hand sanitizers, food and drink suppliers, and manufacturers of other essential services. No other manufacturing businesses should be open. We have had several calls and concerns about furniture shops and mattresses companies, etc., that felt that the announcement speaks to them, and I do wish to clear that up this morning as we go forward. Clearing of vehicles is something that is going to start almost immediately. Superintendent Randy Connaught will speak to that in a few minutes. And so let me just give some reminders of some of the things that we have been saying over the last few weeks. These new businesses, together with all other businesses that are cleared to operate, must adhere to all of the established protocols under regulations. And that is the physical distancing, the wearing of masks, the marking of the 6 feet distances inside and outside of businesses, adhering to the opening and closing times for all businesses. I want to take this opportunity here now to remind the public that the Grenada Tourism Authority has organized a shout-out of frontline workers starting at 7 o'clock this afternoon for 5 minutes. The intention here is not to create a carnival-like atmosphere, but it's for persons to recognize the contribution made by the frontline workers in the fight of COVID-19. The intention is to make some noise with your pot spoons, your drums, your shell, whatever that is, at 7 o'clock this evening for 5 minutes, which will end at 7:05 p.m. As the public continue to adhere to the protocols that have been put in place, more and more easement of businesses or more and more easement of opportunities to do other things will be considered as we return to a state of normalcy. I indicated in last week's press brief that when we started, we had no business days. Then we moved to 1 business day. Then we moved to 2. Now we have 3 business days. We have had limited businesses opening. In this week, you have seen several other businesses opened, and now we are announcing the opening of other businesses that we have not seen before. This says that we are improving in what we are doing. It says that the cooperation of the public is being adhered to. The call for adherence to the protocol is being respected, and because of those, the authorities now see it fit to open more and more businesses. We urge the nation that we are not totally out of the woods yet, and that you should continue to abide and obey all of the rules and protocols that have been put in place to ensure safety as we go forward. We are improving. We are not there yet. But I assured the public that as we continue to move forward, more businesses will be open, more businesses hours will be added as we continue on the way to normalcy. I'm now going to turn you over to Superintendent Connaught, who is going to speak about some traffic-related issues and the clearing of vehicles on the St. George's Port. Superintendent Connaught.
Thank you, Superintendent Curwen. And I want to say a special good morning to the viewing and listening public. It is indeed a pleasure again, Superintendent Curwen, to be here with you, my esteemed colleague, to provide some pertinent but very important information to members of the public in these very critical times under our present circumstances, which I believe it is significantly impacting on our way of life. So we must provide some clarity as we move along. I also want to recognize the members of the media who has been soldiering along with us, and also the essential workers and other workers providing critical services throughout the state. We do recognize your partnership in a very significant way, and we look forward for the continued support as we all seek to ensure that Grenada becomes COVID-free using the COVID smart applications. My presentation this morning will be very brief, unlike my colleague. I will speak specifically to the issue of clearing of motor vehicles, which has been some welcoming news for persons, importers, and other individuals who would have seized the opportunity. We know come June, we'll have some conditions placed on the importation of certain types of vehicles or age of certain types of vehicles. So persons are seizing the opportunity now. So I will give you some details here as to where we're at. It is something that has been deliberated upon. The cabinet has approved it, but it was not done in isolation of the importers and the persons who would have otherwise imported a vehicle to have that luxury. So as announced yesterday, the port facility would be open to facilitate the clearing of motor vehicles. Again, this plea was made by importers and other concerned persons within that sphere, and consideration was given, and it is now approved for vehicles to be cleared today. We have had extensive discussion among the parties that who would be involved in the clearing of those motor vehicles, and by that I mean the Customs and Excise Department, Inland Revenue, Post Authority, and of course the Royal Grenada Police Force. Now there would be relative ease, as I anticipate, in the clearing of those vehicles today, because from my understanding, It is not quite a significant number of vehicles, but it is important that we do so because the frequency of the visits of the car carrier is now presenting a significant challenge on the port to provide storage accommodation for those vehicles. The exercise would start, or should have started already at 8 o'clock this morning, and it would run up until 3 o'clock this afternoon. And in our bulletin that was presented to the members of the public, we are strongly advised that in coming to do business at the port, you are expected to ensure that you have all the necessary documentation in hand so as to ease the processing of the clearing of those vehicles. We have already established or re-engaged our officers at the Inland Revenue Department where the payment for your motor vehicle registration can be done. It will be critical that you also engage a provider to manufacture or prepare your numbered plate tags. And in addition, the Inland Revenue Department would have cashiers on the ready to ensure that the necessary payment of fees are also being made at the Inland Revenue Department. It is a relatively smooth process, which we anticipate, as I said. We don't expect too much crowding, but we just want to re-emphasize that it is important that we maintain the physical distancing protocols. And this easement, again, has come at a time when it is critically needed, and where we have seen that the adherence to the protocols that were established already has been generally adhered to by members of the public. So we are looking forward to a very good day at the port. And coming out of this exercise, we would review and get some feedback, and that would we would then make a determination as to whether or not we can proceed with this facility going forward. But as I indicated earlier, it is a limited amount of vehicles at the port, but we do expect the car carrier to come in sometime next week, as I understand. So it just might be an ongoing process, but we definitely have to look at the operations from today and to see how best we can improve on the facility, or where other recommendations are necessary. We would make the necessary adaptations. Very important to note with the clearing of vehicles is that individuals must have the vehicle risk insurance. And I'm happy again to indicate that the insurance companies, today being a business day, they are open for business, and persons would want to take the advantage today to ensure that you engage your insurance companies and to apply and obtain the necessary vehicle risk insurance before that vehicle is cleared and made ready for the road. Okay. On another note, I should again bring to the attention of omnibus operators and the operators of hired taxis and other vehicles that the regulations are still in force, and it is a violation for persons to operate a public service vehicle at this present time under the emergency regulations. Our last two shoppings especially, we have seen a resurgence of buses plying the route, and our operational team has had to be engaging these bus operators along the routes. And persons must understand they're actually putting their lives at risk. We cannot maintain social distancing and the distancing protocols if we confine ourselves to the same space, which are in most cases in violation of the distancing protocols. So we will be out again in full numbers to ensure that this does not continue. Additionally, we'll be policing pedestrian traffic also. Just last Wednesday, I saw some of the photos that were posted, and it really was cause for concern when you looked outside some of the businesses, how persons were in extremely close proximity to each other. I know sometimes it could feel like a rush, but we do want you to understand that in order for us to move to the next level where we can declare ourselves COVID-free, we must take all the necessary precautions and follow the guidelines that have been given to us by the health officials. So this is something that we really want to emphasize on individuals. All right. However, I want to again assure members of the public that we are out there as servants of the people, and we notwithstanding with the fact that we have law enforcement responsibility. But feel free to engage us at any time. We'll be more than willing to provide the necessary assistance and support to you. We have been doing a sterling job just thus far, and you have been remarkable in terms of the level of support that you have been given to the Royal Grenada Police Force, and especially the Traffic Department. So I again implore you and to beseech you to give us the necessary support that is required at this time, and we too do commit ourselves to providing sterling support and law enforcement services to you.
Thank you very
In
much.
closing, just one brief in closing, today is anticipated again, as I said, to be a very busy day, and I want us to have a very productive day, but to be smart. And by be smart, I want to remind us all to be COVID smart, and to again say that we are all in this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Randy Connaught and Superintendent Vannie Curwen. We got a lot of information that we can work with today, colleagues. Anybody is ready as yet? Nobody? Sherry Ann? All right, Sherry Ann, Noel, good morning. Go right ahead.
Good morning, and good morning to the panelists. My question has to do with the opening of the ports and the agents who would be calling the consignees for the barrels. And so I know in the restrictions there was clause that states no vehicle for hire, and with no public transportation. What is the procedures as it relates to that, from someone leaving their parish to come down to the port to, as you say, clear a barrel?
Thanks for the question, Sharon. Notwithstanding the fact that barrel services are opened, the law remains what it is, that there should be no vehicle for hire and no public transportation. It means, therefore, that the consignee will have to make arrangement to be able to have those barrels from the port without violating the law.
Sherry Ann, you have another question?
Could you just elaborate a little further on that? Because I know there are people who might be a bit confused and say to make arrangements to have it from the port without violating. How is that possible when you would actually need to hire something to carry your barrel?
If the agent call you and say that your barrel is ready for pickup, you can have a conversation with the agent. The agent might be able to get the barrel to you, rather than you having to hire a transportation. It has to be an arrangement between yourself or the consignee and the agent. So if you have your personal transportation, you can use your personal transportation so to do. And if you do not have a personal transportation, I want to advise that you have that conversation with the agency to see what sort of assistance the agency can provide to you. But it is still a law that there should be no transportation for hire. So that's an arrangement you can make between consignee and the company.
Okay, good morning. Mikey, go right ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My question has to do with practicality, as Sherian is stating in our first question. We heard in the presentation that the mechanic shops and the tire shops and so on are to be opened, and you have to do so by appointment. But in practicality, when you are on the road, something happens to your vehicle, you go to the nearest tire shop, or you go to the nearest mechanic shop. So are we saying here that in these instances you have to avoid just showing up at these places, and that you actually have to make an appointment before?
This is exactly what we're saying, Mikey. Thanks for your question. If you're held up on the road, the advice is to call the particular tire shop or mechanic shop before you just show up. Right? They will be able to tell you whether or not they can facilitate you at that particular time, because at the time that you may have that issue, they may have 10, 8, 7 vehicles they're attending to and cannot attend to you at the particular time. And you just showing up there just creating unnecessary congestion and adding to the density. So the approach here is that you call to find out when it's appropriate, if it is appropriate, that you can show up at that time. The company have a responsibility to do scheduling, as we have explained, and they will tell you what would be a good time for you to come. So the advice is not for you to just show up at these businesses without calling first to verify whether it's an appropriate time that you can come.
Go ahead, Mikey.
Okay. You said that it seemed like people are violating less. I want to have a better appreciation for the figures, right? So how many persons have been arrested so far just for this week, and what sort of violations are we seeing? Are we still seeing those property violations as well?
I do not have the statistics of arrest with me this morning as we speak, but having spoken to most of the division, I can safely say that we have had less arrests this week than we have had in previous weeks. We do still have quite a few minor crimes that have been committed. We do still have a few property crimes of stealing and so forth. So notwithstanding the fact that we are under curfew, criminal enterprises are still continuing to do what they're doing, and the Royal Grenada Police Force is continuing to do what we're doing. We have made a few arrests for some of the minor property crimes, but crimes or violations under the regulation, the emergency powers regulation, that has deceased for the most part. We have not seen much violation. I'm not saying that there isn't any, but in comparison to last week and the week before, the numbers are much less.
You have another one, Mikey? All right, Superintendent Curwen, maybe you can just clear up for me. You mentioned that businesses will have specific days to clear barrels. How would they know? What is the discussion being held so that A will know, okay, I'm going on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday?
This modality has been worked out between the Grenada Port Authority and these businesses. So let me just give an example. Whiskey, for example, which is one of the companies that brings in barrel. Whiskey will know from the Port Authority that on Monday, you are cleared to come to the port to clear barrels. Other companies that bring in barrels will be told by the Port Authority what days that they can come to port. There might be days when more than one company will be at port at the same time based on the numbers that we're dealing with. But these companies will be told what days they're coming to clear. And once the clearing has taken place, these companies will now contact the consignee or the customers to say, you can now come to the port to process or collect your barrel, whichever procedure that is in place. So this is how it's going to be done. So it's not a case where the company decide which day we're going. They have to be told by the Port Authority which day they can come. So that's a structure that has been put in place by the Port Authority in conjunction with all of these businesses to know what day is the day they can come to the port to clear.
Anyone of you can take it. If you're not wearing your masks, can you be ticketed, fined? What is the protocol there?
Yes, the mask remains part of the law, and you can be ticketed. In fact, you can be arrested, but I want to make this point here clear and the difference between the ticketing and the arresting. The RGPF, under the authority of the commissioner, has taken the decision that we, as a policy, we will not go about arresting people for us. I guess in this crisis, the humanitarian side of the police force is also being seen. We understand the strain and stress that we all are enduring, and therefore, although it remains part of the legislation, the policy now is that, and the new regulation has made provision for ticketing, and so it is advisable that we ticket for not wearing the mask as opposed to arresting for not wearing the mask. So you can be ticketed if you're not wearing a mask. All right, and the fine under the ticket is in the first instance $500, in the second instance $750, and in the third or subsequent instances $1,000, as opposed to an arrestable offense where we go straight to $1,000 or 12 months imprisonment. All right, and we want to urge people that the mask has not been done away with. It is still in the regulation. You're still advised to wear the mask, particularly when you're entering on the line for businesses in particular. If you're traveling in a motor vehicle with more than one person, you're obligated to wear that mask. And remember that there should be one person each row of the vehicle. So once there is more than one person in the vehicle, both parties are urged to wear masks.
Thank you. Chrislina, good morning. Go ahead, Chrislina.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Thanks, Les. My question is to Superintendent Connaught. On the business days, we do have a lot of vehicles on the road. I want an update in terms of accidents, because I've been seeing some videos and pictures also being posted. What can you say have been coming in terms of reports that you have had to attend to in the past time?
Good morning, Chrislina. I must say, very jokingly, that COVID has done well for accident statistics. We have not seen that many accidents coming in. As a matter of fact, there are days in the week that we have no accidents recorded. The most we would see on any given day, and those are the days when we have shopping days, it would be about 5 or 6 accidents, and they are very, very minor scratches or fender benders. So we have been doing well with respect to our management of traffic, and I must indicate here that motorists themselves are exercising due care and attention and consideration for other persons using the road. But as it is with all other things, things will happen. So we do have accidents, but it's in the minority now. Very, very few accidents on the roads.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Connaught. So we have a question from Nancy McGuire. She wants to know what's the protocol when police arrest, if police arrest someone and the person is placed in a holding cell, would the person or persons arrested be tested as well as the officers? Because I'm guessing, if, it being sort of close proximity.
Well, we have not been mandated, and I don't think we have the authority in law to mandate the testing of somebody that we have arrested. But I want to go on record to say that we have been testing quite a lot of our police officers. In fact, this week, we have, I think it's 12 or 17. The numbers I'm not sure of. At the Supt police station that have been tested, and all have been tested negatively. Yesterday, there was the discussion to have a number of persons at police headquarters where persons have come within recent weeks to transact business, to have these people tested. So we are ongoing testing in the police force to ensure that our officers remain COVID-free and that if there is any infection among us, that we can pick it up early so that it doesn't spread through the length and breadth of the force. So yes, we are testing our officers, but we cannot mandate or we cannot, force somebody who we arrested to take a test. We do not have the authority in law to do that. But we have been ensuring that our police officers receive necessary testing.
Thank you. Mikey, you have another question? Go ahead. Go ahead, Mikey.
Yes, I do. All right, so the rules are applied by the cabinet and enforced by the police. But given what we know, that there is a possibility of the community spread of the COVID-19, has the Royal Grenada Police Force raised its alert level, how its members operate so that we can guarantee their safety and their family and as well other people who they may come in contact with?
Mikey, this is one of the paramount concerns of the Commissioner of Police. Day in and day out in our command briefing, the issue of safety and security of police officers comes up. I know that on the committee that he sits on, those issues are on the front burner, and he has raised it as often as he can raise it, because if your police force in some way is compromised, you can see what that can do to the security of the country and the state as a whole. So, as a priority, the police force and the safety of the police officers are foremost in the minds of the Commissioner of Police. And hence the reason why we're seeing more police officers receiving tests. We have just received some more PPEs or gloves and masks and so on. And corporate citizens share that concern, Mikey. And they have been contributing and donating to ensure the safety of the police force remains intact. It is something we do not take lightly, because if one police officer comes down, we do not know the impact that would have in terms of spreading among us. We're a small group. Unfortunately, we cannot operate the way that members of the public operates. Our operational issues and the way we transport our officers and what we're asked to do, the risk to police officers is higher than to other members of the public, and we are well aware of that risk, and we are doing everything to mitigate against any possibility of infection. So yes, to your question.
You have another, Mikey?
Can I ask a second question?
Right ahead.
If we have time. Okay, the Ministry of Education have rolled out their plan for the next few months. But we are hearing a lot of parents complaining about the availability of stationaries and electronic supplies and so on, so that their children can align themselves with the new dispensation. Are there conversations being had in terms of a way forward to allow parents access to these commodities for the benefit of their children?
Mikey, after the announcement from the Ministry of Education, I am sure that discussion would have been started in the circle that it ought to have started in terms of providing that kind of access to parents and students to be able to access school materials that they would need to continue their education at home. We have to appreciate that while there is progressive steps into opening up, everything cannot be opened up at the same time. As the need arises for certain sector, those considerations will be given and those approvals will be given. So we are here this week. I am sure by next week you probably will see more businesses opening. Unfortunately, stationary services might be on the list next week after consideration by the committee that looks at these issues.
Nancy Maguire is asking for a bit of clarification. How many police officers are there in the force and how many have been tested to date?
I can answer the first question. I am not sure of the second. The force is between 1,000 and 1,100 strong. As to how much have been tested, I do not have the data or statistics on that, but I can tell you there are ongoing tests. We have started, we are continuing. We have some that are scheduled to take place, and that is going to be ongoing. If we think that we are compromised in any way, if we think that any arrest or any contact with anybody raises the risk of contamination, we're going to ensure that our officers. Currently, we have a few officers who are in quarantine because they have come in contact with people who, have been in contact with people who have been in contact with people. So it's a 2 or 3 steps down there, but those are the kind of precautions that we are taking to ensure that our force remain COVID-free. And they are going to wait out the 14 days. They are going to be tested. And if nothing happens, as we hope nothing will, they'll be back in service. So the number of police officers now in quarantine, the number of police officers who this week have been tested, and the number of police officers who are lined up to be tested as we go forward.
Thank you. Christelina, go right ahead.
Yes, I have another question. Just needing some clarity though. Based on the possibility of case number 15 could possibly come from community spread, do you think it has been or it is a wise decision to be opening up more businesses and have more people out at this time?
I will answer this question this way, Ms. John. I share your concern. I understand your concern. And so too are people who are making the decision for opening up these businesses. It has to be a balance between what the data speaks to, what the information speaks to, and what the needs of the people are. And notwithstanding the fact that we're hearing that this may be a community spread, I am sure the Ministry of Health and the committee would have looked at the possibility, they are looking at the data, they are mining the data, they are making decisions based on the information that they have and not necessarily based on the opinion of myself and the general public. So I'm sure this is thoroughly thought through. I know all of the consideration would have been given to opening up those business days in light of what we have just heard about the case number 15. So I don't think it is not a reckless decision or reckless action. Those decisions are taken based on statistics, based on the data that is before the committee, and the committee would have taken all that into consideration when deciding to open additional businesses.
Sherry-Ann?
Yes, my question is for Superintendent Connaught. It's basically for clarification for some members of the public who joined late. In terms of the clearing of vehicles, they would like to know if it's only today or if you have other specified days for clearing of vehicles.
Okay, good morning, Sherry, and thank you for the question. The arrangement only provides for that window for today. However, as I indicated during my brief presentation, we would analyze and assess our performance of the operations for today and look at the feedback that is being provided also. And a determination will be made as to whether or not we make representation to request another day to facilitate the clearing of motor vehicles. But as it is right now, we are only providing that window today.
Colleagues, anybody else have questions? Sherry, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted Superintendent Curwen to just give us an overview on Carriacou. We know that they would have had their shopping days, and so how were things on the sister isles?
Yeah, let me start by reminding the public that Carriacou shopping days now is the same shopping days that we in the mainland have. So Carriacou shop on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, just as we on the mainland in Grenada. That's Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Having spoken to the divisional commander of the Northern District, which is Carriacou and Petit Martinique, there is nothing significant to report in a negative sense that's coming from Carriacou. The operations in Carriacou are peaceful. The people go about their business in a purposeful manner as we have been asking them to do, and there have not been any level of crime to report as coming from Carriacou. And I don't know if I want to make the comparison here, but I think I may want to say that Because the population in Carriacou is much smaller than the population in Grenada, we have seen quieter times in Carriacou as we have seen in Grenada. So Carriacou is well and is doing well, and they are abiding and adhering to those protocols, and they go about the shopping days when it is given to them, which is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, as we have been given, in a manner that we expect. Purposeful, get your business done, and get home.
Sherry?
And yes, and finally for me, another question from the general public. I know that you're having certain discussions and gradual opening of businesses. They would like to know if any discussion has started as it pertains to barber shops and salons and so in terms of a possible opening date.
I am very grateful for this question because this question reminds me of something I should have said earlier on. I was sent 2 flyers yesterday of 2 barber shops that have been advertising opening today. I want to say to the public, the decision has not been made by the authority to open barber shop, hair salons, nail tech shops. We are not there yet. But yes, to your question, consideration is being given to all businesses. When the committee meets, they have a broad spectrum of decisions that they would look at. And all business sector, continue to be looked at, but we have to be mindful of the fact that we're still in a crisis, and we have to look at businesses that are essential to way of life of our people. Some more than the other. We would say that all businesses are important, and I agree, but we have to gradually bring in those businesses that are needed more now. Things like barbershop, hairdressing saloons, nail tech shops, these are not necessarily essential for survival of Grenadians at this point. So you would find that while consideration is being given and discussions are being had, we do not yet reach the stage where the committee feels that it is important to have these businesses open as opposed to the businesses that, that have been opened before and those we have announced this morning. But as I indicated this morning, as we continue to progress, as we continue to adhere to protocols, as we continue to improve, more and more businesses are going to be opening up. Every week now we're seeing more businesses coming on stream. Okay, and this is being prioritized as to what is important now, this week, as opposed to next week. This week the priority is given to automotive shops, postal services, barrels, courier, and I am sure as we go forward, we will hear about barbershops, hairdressing saloons, nail tech shops, and these other businesses as we progress. We are getting towards a state of normalcy. We are not there yet. It's a graduated process, and we're moving from one spectrum to the other. Soon, all businesses in Grenada, hopefully, will be open.
I know you spoke today, but Kalishra Fari is asking, so I'll still ask it. How many persons have been arrested for not wearing face covering in public, and how many reports, the second one, how many reports of police misconduct have been made since the state of the emergency began, and are they being dealt with? What is another one? What is the justification for including restaurants as essential to the survival of Grenadians at this time?
Let me take the police misconduct first, because I have been hearing of police misconduct since the Emergency Powers Act has been passed and we are under state of emergency. I've seen some video floated around, and I want to make a distinction between the authority and powers of the police and the misconduct of the police. I've said in the program before, I am not here to defend the bad or wrong actions of the police force. There is a difference between the use of force and police brutality. The law makes it clear that if a police officer is in the process of arresting a person who is resisting, that police officer is entitled to use whatever force that is necessary to be able to bring that person under subjection. So sometimes what we see happening does not amount to police brutality, even if it looks in the eyes of the ordinary person to be some sort of force being used. Now, more specific to the question. From where I sit at the Community Relations Department, which is the department that receives complaints against police misconduct of police officers, I or my department have not received one single complaint during the period of the emergency, state of emergency of any police officers. We have not received one complaint. I am not going to sit here and say that perhaps there are not police brutality happening. I don't know that. But what I'm saying is that members of the public knows that that is happening as a fact. We want to know about it. We have been investigating, have been arresting, and have been disciplining our police officers over time. And this is no exception here. We have dismissed police officers for wrongdoing. We have dismissed police officers for misconduct. We have dismissed police officers for abuse of their authority. And we are going to continue to do that. So if members of the public have that information, that they have been misused of police authority, please report it to the nearest police station, report it to the Community Relations Department. We want to know about it. In this time of crisis, it's not time to be taking advantage of the citizens, but it's time for us to do our work and do it forcefully if we have to. There was a question about the numbers of arrests for face masks. I indicated before that I do not have the numbers with me in terms of arrest, but what I can say is that we have seen very little arrests or very little ticket or very little issues with face masks over this week over the weeks that we have had before. I can't say definitively what the numbers are, but I can say with a degree of assurance and certainty that there have been less arrests and less engagements for persons wearing face masks. And this is attributed to the fact that more persons are complying now than they have been before.
Okay, and she had a final one. What is the justification for including restaurants as unessential services at this point?
I will be very careful how I approach this question. I do not sit on the committee that makes the decision on what businesses that should be open. But what I can say is that this committee takes everything into consideration as to what businesses should be opened. I can give my own thought and opinion to it. We have had limited grocery stores open before. Yes, we have opened up a lot more grocery stores now, but some people may have difficulties accessing or maybe the choice of food that they eat, and so an opportunity is given to people to be able to feed themselves. So you can either cook yourself, or you may choose to feed yourself by outsourcing or buying. And I think it's important at this point that restaurants open up because it gives the population an opportunity to be able to feed themselves if they do not choose to cook. Food is an essential part of life right now, and restaurants provide that kind of sustenance and gives you a choice to decide whether you want to do it yourself or whether you want to deliver to you.
The police force has probably had to have all men on deck to handle the state of emergency. Can you comment on the performance of especially the young ones who would have had to, well, quote unquote, grow up quickly to be able to handle this situation?
That's a very interesting question because in recent weeks we have just graduated our last batch of police officers, and they were given the usual time off to go spend with the family before they come back. This group of police officers had to be rushed back and not able to take the time that they needed with their family. So they are basically christened, if you will, throughout this crisis. There was no time to be integrated the way we usually integrate them. There has been no time for you to do the forced rotation, which is part of our policies. You get to work in every division and district as a rotation. There was no time for that this time. They were just thrust into the spotlight and expect to operate. Thanks to the training that they have received, I can say here they have performed creditably well. I've seen them on the street. Every day I engage with them. They have been briefed properly and they execute their duty with admiration. And so I want to take the opportunity to say thanks to the training school, thanks to the supervisors for what I have seen these young officers have done over the last couple of weeks. Hats off to them. The police force is a place where the moment you get in, your psyche change. Your thinking changes. And so making the shift from civilian life into the police, you get that very early. So even if you didn't have a chance to be integrated properly, the fact that you've gone through your 6-month training, you're ready to go. And they have shown that they were more than ready to go. And in fact, they have gone all the way.
All right, so we're almost to 1 hour, so we'll take a few more questions. Just give me 1 second, colleagues. Somebody else is asking, what's the situation with computer stores? We only have 2 computer stores companies here, and they need to get a printer for their son's work.
I am sure that decision is also before the committee and being considered. I would just urge the public for understanding and patience and just wait to hear when other businesses will be coming on stream.
Mikey and then Sherry-Ann. All right. I just want to follow up on a question, on a comment that the that Superintendent Curwen just made. Is a complaint from the public or the aggrieved person required for the police to initiate an investigation into police brutality or any other form of abuse, for example, abuse of power or so on, if that breach is seen by the police by other means, like social media or some other means?
To answer your question, Mikey, definitively no. Okay, you don't necessarily need that. But let's put it in this context. A video that's circulating doesn't tell the story. The video don't always start at the beginning of an event. The video could be shot at a time when the action of the perpetrator was not captured so as to justify the response that you're seeing from the police. All right? And we've seen several videos. And when you look at the videos, what you see, where the video start being shot from doesn't tell the story. We can investigate on a video, yes, but we would still need the cooperation of the public to be able to provide first-hand information as to what has happened. And we have initiated some investigations in the past on just based on what is circulating. All right? But the practice is we ask that members of the public, the aggrieved persons, if you feel so aggrieved, please make a complaint, and you can point us to other people that we can speak with. But notwithstanding that fact, we have initiated investigation based on allegations that have been made, based on videos that have been circulating. We have done that in the past, yes.
Sherry-Ann?
Okay, I'm just going to read out my final view. With reference to Ms. Johnson's question as it relates to masks, there are people who have certain conditions and wearing of a mask becomes problematic for them. They're asking if officers are informed that with proper explanation, if they would still be arrested or if discretion would be used. That is one question. I just want to say all the questions one time before they leave me. And part two, we had a couple of arrests recently and persons remanded to Her Majesty's prison. How do you treat to that? Because I know the prison, it's closed as we talk COVID, and then someone wants a priority with reference to pet shops. And that's it for me. Thank you much.
Let me take the mask first. It is not the duty of the police to decide what laws are enforced and how it is enforced. We are creatures of statute. We are the enforcers of the law, and it is for Parliament to make that exception and not the police force. So if the law says you should wear that mask, a medical condition or something will be taken into consideration as an explanation, but it does not justify you not wearing that mask. It is not for us to decide how the law gets enforced. We enforce the law that is given to us to enforce. We have had that issue with seatbelts as well, and I'm sure Mr. Connaught can speak to that. But if the law says you ought to wear a mask in particular places or in particular circumstances, you ought to wear that mask. Yes, you can provide an explanation, but it doesn't mean that you are not violating the law. And from my own personal perspective, if you're in a line or if you're in a business place and you have a medical condition and you cannot wear that mask, then you're putting yourself at risk and you're putting everybody else in that establishment at risk. It's a violation of the law and you should not be there. That's question one. I'm not sure, if you could just remind me of the other two parts of the question. Oh, Sherry, you spoke something about the prison. Yeah, I think I got the prison one.
To do with persons who are placed on remand in terms of COVID. If how do you treat with them now, putting them within the prison population? Will they be tested first, or how do you treat with that? That's basically the question. People moving into the Her Majesty's prisons.
Well, I do want to assure the public that although the court physical structure is closed, the court is accessible, and the court have been operating. And you're right, Cherry, there have been a few people who have been remanded to Her Majesty's prison. I do not know of any testing procedures before they enter prison, but I know that the prison have their own structure and their own policy that they're going to be guided by. So when you get to the prison, I cannot speak for the prison, but I do know that the prison have the policy that will guide what they do and how they will do it.
Chrislina?
I have a question, one each for each of the superintendent. For Superintendent Curwen, on another issue, aside from what we're speaking about, yesterday of a possible hanging in St. Patrick, can you provide any update as to where we are with that? And for Superintendent Connaught, as it relates to vehicle inspection, can you provide an update? If a person would have, the time would have expired, what happens? Or what is happening?
Okay, thank you, Chrislene. I'll take the second question that was directed to me. With respect to vehicle inspection, we have since come into being the regulations guiding us to ensure that we remain COVID safe. We have since suspended all vehicle inspections across the island. What we have considered, though, is to ensure that persons who wants to continue to drive that motor vehicle, even though your inspection date would have already passed, is to ensure that you have the requisite vehicle risk insurance. Hence, coming into being the easement of the restrictions that were placed on insurance companies. So they are now open for business on selected days. So we have been advising individuals who would have been impacted by this to ensure that you have the requisite vehicle risk insurance, and then you can proceed to drive on the public road. So once you're covered, you're good to go in the interim. So we will not be enforcing the law with respect to you not having that vehicle being inspected and paying your road tax and receiving the license decal for this particular period. So once you're good to go with your insurance, then there will be a level of flexibility until we resume normal operations. Of course, an announcement will be made when that time comes around.
And to answer your question on the possible hanging yesterday, all I do wish to say on that is to confirm the fact that we are dealing with a possible hanging. It is not prudent for me to divulge much information. Investigation is continuing, and at some stage at the end of the investigation, we'll be in a better position to be able to inform the public as to what may or might have happened. But I can confirm that we did have a possible hanging yesterday.
So we take the two final questions from online. Let's see, as more community testing is being done, is there a strategy to step back and close businesses rather than focus on opening more, given the inherent risks of community spread? That one. And then the final one, and we're going to close off, is how is the Special Victims Unit operating during this time? And are prisoners tested before intake at the prison? People tested before intake at the prison?
Well, I have dealt with the prisoners intake at prison, and I said I do not know of any policy or procedure that is happening, but I indicated that the prison have their own policy, and I'm sure that once you, at the establishment of the prison policy will kick in. The Special Victims Unit continue to operate. They continue to investigate whatever complaints that are made to them. They are not hindered in any way by what is happening. And the question of businesses opening as opposed to closing based on the last test, I think I answered that question before to say that the committee that makes the decision on businesses opening would have taken all of the factors into consideration in determining to do what is being done this morning. We know of the case number 15, if the number is correct, I think it is, but they know of the data, they are mining data, they have the statistics, and they're making decisions based on the statistics that are before them. So what might seem foolhardy to me and to everybody else may not be to them, because we are only reacting to what is being said. They are making decisions based on what is before them and what is happening. So they are guided by the situation on the ground, they are guided by the facts, they are guided by what is happening, and those decisions are made with those information.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, colleagues. Superintendent Curwen and Superintendent Connaught, you have a little time now to give any closing statements that you may wish to do.
Okay, just a general reminder. We know with this easement would come an increase in road density. Persons will be seen up and about trying to conduct business. But we urge that you do so in a very purposeful way and to ensure that we comply and conform with distancing protocols. Additionally, we urge you to be very responsible in your action. And again, as I always indicate, I always allude to this fact that we are in this fight together, and it is our individual contribution to ensuring that we remain COVID-free and exercising the proper hygiene methods that would only guarantee us to ensure that at the end of the day, Grenada would be COVID safe. I thank you for the cooperation, not just to the media, but also to the general public, who religiously every day, by way of our daily interactions or even through the interactions that we have on the press brief, giving us the necessary support and insight and feedback that are necessary to make those judgment calls that are critical so that we can continue in our efforts and to serve you best as we can.
Thank you, Superintendent Curwen.
In closing, I want to thank the individual who have sent in a question to me via WhatsApp regarding the time for the Grenada Tourism Authority shout out. Yes, it was first announced to be at 6, and that time has been changed to 7. So I was just reminded that it is 6, but I want to remind the public now that it is now 7 and not 6. In closing though, I want to take the opportunity to shout out or give a shout out to essential workers. Over the last couple of weeks, we have spoken quite a lot about doctors, nurses, and police officers, and the media to some extent. But I want to take the opportunity to say thanks to prison officers, thanks to cashiers and supermarket workers, sanitation workers, security guards, especially those at the airport, laboratory technicians that make work of the doctor much easier, the mayor, Grenada, and Nawasa, our food manufacturers and suppliers. I mean, everybody who have played their part in critical time. We want to take the opportunity this morning to say thank you and hats off to you. We urge our people that we're not at the end of the road. More businesses are coming in stream. The easement is coming, but you're urged to play your part so that country can play its part in opening up as we get back to a state of normalcy. So thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Vannie Curwen in charge of Community Relations and Superintendent Randy Connaught in charge of Traffic. And of course, colleagues, we thank you so much. I'm Leslie Johnson. Have a blessed and productive day today.